There's a strange moment in every chosen one's life when they begin to realize that all the chaos, all the setbacks, all the so-called bad luck they've endured wasn't just random misfortune. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't failure. It was initiation. And if you're watching this, you've survived things that weren't meant to be survived. You've walked through storms that others didn't come out of. You've been broken down in ways no one saw, tested in silence, and forced to rebuild yourself with nothing but your own breath. And now maybe you're starting to wonder, what if that wasn't bad luck at all? What if that was the universe training me for something bigger? Because here's the truth most people are too afraid to say out loud. The chosen ones are chosen through suffering. Not because life hates them, but because life is refining them. I remember the first time I realized that my worst moments were actually divine setups. I had lost everything. My health was failing. I was broke, alone, betrayed. I thought life was working against me, but I didn't realize that life wasn't punishing me, it was positioning me. It was stripping away everything that wasn't me so I could finally meet the part of myself that couldn't be taken. And that's where the real journey began. That's when I stopped seeing myself as a victim of bad luck and started seeing myself as a soul in training. And once you make that shift, reality never feels the same again. You realize the fire wasn't there to kill you. It was there to reveal you. Let's talk about the first time bad luck turned out to be your greatest gift, when you got rejected. Whether it was a job, a relationship, a community, or a dream, rejection stings. It feels like a door slamming in your face. But what if that door was locked because it wasn't your door? What if your soul had already outgrown that space and the rejection was a cosmic redirect? Think about it. How many times have you begged for something to work only to look back years later and thank God it didn't? Rejection, for a chosen one, is sacred. It's not the universe saying no to your worth. It's the universe saying yes to your alignment. Sometimes you don't get what you want because you're being prepared for what you deserve. And if you got what you wanted too soon, it would have crushed you. The second time bad luck became a gift was when you were isolated. You lost friends. You were ghosted. People faded. You looked around and realized you were standing alone. And that silence? That wasn't abandonment. That was activation. Because when the noise fades, the soul speaks. And the chosen ones are always called into isolation before they arise. You know why? Because other people's voices are too loud. Their expectations, their projections, their energy, it clouds your connection to your purpose. So the universe puts you in a cocoon, not to punish you, to transform you. And that loneliness you felt, that wasn't emptiness. That was sacred space being cleared so you could hear your own frequency for the first time. And once you heard it, you could never go back. The third time bad luck became a gift was when you failed publicly. You made the wrong move. You launched something and it flopped. You took a risk and fell flat. People laughed. You were embarrassed. But what you didn't realize at the time was that failure was the fast track to mastery. Because when you fail in front of others, you stop fearing their judgment. You stop needing their applause to validate your path. You become dangerous in the best way, fearless, unshakable, because after you've been laughed at and kept going, you become untouchable. That failure taught you resilience. It showed you what you're really made of. And most importantly, it humbled you. And humility is the foundation of all spiritual power. And here's a question I want to offer you now, one that might change how you see everything. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was the best thing that ever happened for you? What if the betrayal, the breakdown, the closed doors, the heartbreaks were all coded lessons designed to unlock your next level? The chosen ones don't rise through ease. They rise through fire. And if your life has felt heavy, chaotic, backwards, it's because you're being forged. Let me share something personal. There was a time when I lost everything I had built. Years of work gone overnight. Money drained. Reputation shattered. I thought I had failed. But what I didn't know was that the identity I had built was too small for the calling I was stepping into. The universe had to burn down the version of me that was addicted to approval, addicted to control, addicted to being liked so I could rise as who I really am. That collapse was the gift. That bad luck was the divine hand tearing down my illusions so I could walk in truth. And when I finally stopped resisting that loss, I felt it. Peace. Not the kind of peace you earn. The kind of peace that was waiting for you all along once you dropped what wasn't yours to carry. So I want you to think about this. What if your life hasn't been falling apart, but falling into place? What if every detour was actually a shortcut in disguise? What if your soul made a deal before you were born to endure the fire so you could carry the flame? Because here's what they don't tell you. The most powerful souls often have the most chaotic beginnings, not because they're cursed, but because they're called. And that calling will cost you everything that isn't real. But what you gain is you. We've only touched the surface. There are still 4 more moments of bad luck that hold the keys to your highest power. And the next one? It's the most misunderstood of all. Losing your identity. When everything you thought you were crumbles.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
There comes a moment on every chosen one's path when everything they thought they were no longer fits. The name, the role, the story, the image, the dreams, they all begin to feel hollow, like a costume worn too long. And when that moment comes, it feels like death. Not a physical one, but something even more disorienting. A spiritual unraveling. You look in the mirror and suddenly don't recognize who's staring back. The person you worked so hard to become begins to dissolve, and with it, all the certainty you clung to. You begin to wonder, who am I without this title? Who am I without their approval? Who am I if I'm not who I've always been trying to be? And this is where the real burn begins. Because what no one tells you is that your identity, your sense of self, is often built on survival. You created who you are based on what kept you safe. You became the achiever, the caretaker, the rebel, the perfectionist, the strong one, the silent one, not because that was your essence, but because that was how you learned to navigate a world that didn't see you fully. And when you start to wake up, when your soul begins to stretch beyond those old roles, the identity you've built starts to crack, and it feels like bad luck. You lose jobs, relationships shift, passions fade, people no longer resonate with you. You try to hold on, but the more you grip, the more things fall apart. That's not a breakdown. That's a breakthrough trying to happen. Losing your identity is not a tragedy. It's the most sacred phase of spiritual awakening. Because only when you lose who you're not can you begin to remember who you are. And the universe, in its fierce love for you, will strip away every false layer. Not to punish you, but to reveal you. This is the burn before the bloom, the void before the vision. And yes, it hurts. It's terrifying to let go of the version of you that everyone clapped for. It's terrifying to no longer know your place in the world. But ask yourself, is the fear of being unknown greater than the pain of being untrue? This burn is your invitation to authenticity. And authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about being whole. It's about integrating every part of you, the sacred and the messy, the inspired and the insecure, the divine and the deeply human. Because the real power of the chosen ones doesn't come from how well they perform. It comes from how deeply they embody truth. And truth doesn't always look polished. Sometimes it looks like crying in the middle of the night because you don't know who you are anymore. Sometimes it looks like walking away from everything you once fought for. Sometimes it looks like disappointing others to finally be in alignment with yourself. But in that empty space, something incredible begins to happen. You start hearing a different voice. Not the voice of your conditioning, not the voice of society, not the voice of fear, but the voice of your soul. And it's quiet at first, gentle, easy to ignore. But if you listen long enough, it gets louder, clearer, bolder. And it starts to guide you not back to who you were, but forward to who you've always been beneath the noise. That's when the identity burn becomes a blessing. Because you realize you never needed to become anyone, you only needed to remember. I know what it feels like to lose everything you thought defined you. I've been there. I've watched my identity collapse under the weight of my own growth. I've seen dreams die, relationships end, entire chapters close. And I've doubted myself, wondered if I was lost, but I wasn't. I was shedding skin. I was outgrowing the shell that once protected me. And the moment I stopped resisting the burn, the moment I surrendered to the fire, I found something no version of success had ever given me. Freedom, to do whatever I want. The freedom to be who I am without apology. So if you're in that space now, if you feel like you're losing yourself, let me tell you, good. Lose it. Let it all fall. Let the version of you that was built on fear dissolve, because what's coming next isn't a better mask. It's your face. And when you meet yourself without the filters, you'll understand why the burn was necessary. You'll understand that you weren't falling apart, you were falling into alignment. And here's the real magic. Once you've burned through the false identity, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract anything, but because authenticity radiates. People feel your frequency. They don't know why they're drawn to you, they just are. Because real recognizes real. And when you become real, you give others permission to do the same. That's how the chosen ones change the world. Not by pretending to have it all together, but by being brave enough to fall apart and rebuild from truth. But we're not done yet. Because the next layer of bad luck is the one that cuts the deepest when people you love walk away. When the ones you thought would stay forever, don't. And that heartbreak? That's not just pain. That's a portal. There's a kind of heartbreak the world doesn't prepare you for. It's not the romantic kind, though it can include that. It's deeper. It's the heartbreak of realizing someone you loved, someone who walked with you, laughed with you, maybe even prayed with you can't go where you're going. That ache. That's not just emotional. It's spiritual. It's the soul's realization that a chapter has closed, even if your heart hasn't caught up yet. And when it happens, you don't always get a clean ending. Sometimes people drift. Sometimes they ghost. Sometimes they betray. Sometimes they just disappear. And you're left wondering, was it something I did? Was I too much, too intense, too different? But what if the real answer is this? You changed frequencies and they didn't. This is one of the most painful initiations for the chosen ones. Because we love deeply, we see potential, we stay loyal to people's essence, even when their behavior no longer aligns. We hold on, hoping they'll meet us at the next level. But when your energy shifts, when your light sharpens and your truth deepens, not everyone can handle the reflection you become. Your growth becomes a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see themselves that clearly. So they pull away, or they lash out. Or they pretend not to notice you've transformed. But deep inside, the connection isn't broken. It's just no longer in resonance. And holding on would mean shrinking back into a version of you that no longer exists. So what feels like bad luck, losing friends, drifting from family, outgrowing your circle is actually sacred. It's the universe clearing space. Because the soul knows who belongs. The soul knows who is aligned with your future, not just your past. And sometimes the goodbye has to come before the new tribe can arrive. Sometimes the universe waits for you to release before it replaces. But that in-between space, it's lonely. It messes with your head. You start wondering if you're meant to walk this path alone. You start craving the comfort of old connections, even if they no longer match your truth. And that's the test. Can you sit in the ache of empty space long enough to receive what's real? Here's what I've learned. People are not lost. They are returned. If someone walks out of your life during your awakening, they're not being taken from you, they're being returned to their own path, just as you are being returned to yours. That doesn't mean they were bad or wrong. It means the contract expired, the lesson completed, the vibration shifted. And when you can bless the goodbye instead of resenting it, you free yourself to receive what your soul has been calling in all along. Your soul family. And your soul family. They're not just people who like you. They're people who see you, people who recognize your energy without needing you to explain it, people who don't flinch at your power, your depth, your weirdness, your brilliance. They don't need you to dim. They don't need you to pretend. They come into your life like a breath you didn't know you were holding. And when they arrive, it feels like remembering. No masks, no performance, just resonance. And the beauty is, they often appear when you finally stop trying to find them, when you've made peace with solitude, when you've chosen truth over company. That's when they show up, because your vibration becomes the invitation. But here's the hard truth. If you're still clinging to relationships out of guilt, fear, or nostalgia, you're blocking the very connections your soul is trying to manifest. You can't receive what's next while you're still gripping the past. And you can't step into your full light while dragging people who resist their own. So the sacred goodbye isn't about bitterness. It's about clarity. It's about honoring the role people played in your story, while also honoring your right to outgrow the version of you they knew. It's about trusting that real love, soul love, doesn't require sacrifice of self. Let me ask you something. Who have you been holding on to just because you're afraid of being alone? And deeper still, what would happen if you trusted that loneliness is not a punishment but a portal? Because that silence, that space, that ache, it's not empty. It's sacred room being cleared for alignment, for family, for truth, for kinship that doesn't need to be earned or explained. I've walked through this. I've said goodbye to people I thought would be in my life forever. And at times, I doubted everything. I wondered if I was the problem. But over and over again, the universe showed me every goodbye was a graduation, every ending was an upgrade, and every lonely season was a womb, not a grave. And when I finally stopped resisting, when I let the old go with gratitude instead of grief, the new arrived stronger, deeper, more real than I ever imagined. Not just friends, family, not just listeners, mirrors. So don't fear the goodbye. Don't confuse loss with failure. Sometimes losing the wrong people is the only way to find the right ones. Sometimes the heartbreak is the price of liberation. Sometimes the pain of separation is what opens the door to your highest spiritual intimacy. But we still have one more chapter to unfold. Because the final form of bad luck is the one almost no one talks about, but every chosen one lives through. It's the moment when life becomes so dark, so unrecognizable, that you think you've lost your way completely. When nothing makes sense. When everything you trusted dies. That moment, that's not the end. That's the rebirth. There is a space beyond pain, beyond confusion, beyond even identity loss and heartbreak. It's the place where everything familiar disappears. The ground gives out. The compass breaks. The world turns silent. And you're left standing in what feels like absolutely nothing. No direction. No answers. No one to call. Just you and the void. This is the final initiation of the chosen ones. The stage no one wants to talk about because it's not pretty. It's not poetic. It doesn't look spiritual. It looks like collapse. It feels like death. And in a way, it is. The death of control. The death of certainty, the death of the ego's last tricks. You try to pray, but the words don't land. You try to visualize, but nothing comes. You try to fight, but there's nothing left to fight. This is the point where most people feel forsaken, forgotten. And yet, this is where the real awakening begins, because the void isn't a punishment, it's a passage. It's not emptiness, it's pure potential. It's the space where the universe finally has your full attention. No distractions, no more performance, no more pretending to be okay. Just you and your raw, unfiltered essence. And when everything outside of you falls away, you're left with the only thing that ever mattered: what's within. Yours all. Your breath, your awareness, your truth. And here's the secret. The void is where your real power gets activated. Not the superficial kind. Not the kind that's built on titles or followers or spiritual aesthetics. I'm talking about the quiet, immovable, undeniable kind of power that doesn't need to be seen to be real. The kind of power that comes from knowing, not thinking, knowing that you are still whole even when everything else is gone, that you are still here, still breathing, still you, even in the dark, especially in the dark. There was a time in my life where I lost it all, not just things meaning. Everything that once gave me identity, purpose, direction, dissolved. I was forced to sit in silence for months, no distractions, no way out. Just me and the void. And I hated it until I didn't. Until I realized that this wasn't the end of the road. It was the threshold, the space between my old life and the life I was truly meant for. And once I stopped fighting the emptiness, something miraculous happened. I started hearing a new voice. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of ambition, but the voice of truth, the voice of my soul. And it whispered something so simple, so profound, that it changed everything. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. So if you feel like you've lost everything, if your life has gone silent, if nothing makes sense, if you feel like you're floating in a void, please hear me. You are not lost. You are being returned to yourself. You are being stripped of illusions because your soul is about to rebuild your life on truth, not on ego, not on attachment, but on alignment. And the deeper you surrender, the faster you rise. Because here's the paradox. The moment you stop looking for something outside to save you, you awaken the everything inside you. You realize that you were never meant to be rescued. You are meant to remember. And once you do, the void becomes your womb. The darkness becomes your teacher. And what you thought was the end becomes the beginning of everything you were born to be. Let me ask you something now, not with words, but with energy. What if the nothingness you're feeling right now is the universe clearing space for your everything? What if this is the moment before the miracle? What if this silence is where your soul finally speaks? The chosen ones don't just survive the void. They become it. They become the space through which light is born. And that's why your bad luck was never bad luck. It was coded chaos. It was sacred disruption. It was divine intervention disguised as disaster. Because the universe doesn't play small with chosen ones. It doesn't let you settle. It breaks you out of anything that tries to cage your essence. And now you're ready. You've walked through rejection, isolation, failure, identity loss, heartbreak, and the void. And you're still here, still breathing, still becoming. You didn't just survive 7 layers of initiation, you alchemized them. And now, every scar is a sigil. Every loss is a lesson. Every bad luck moment was a breadcrumb leading you back to your divine blueprint. So go forward now, not as the person you were, but as the soul you remembered. You are not cursed. You are not broken. You are not unlucky. You are chosen. And this was your greatest spiritual gift all along.